Hello again. Today's topic: why and how we need to escape the matrix. We need to do it now. We need to do it now because it ain't no game out here, man. We need to reclaim our power. We need to reclaim who we are. What are your goals? What are your aspirations in life? Or are you just going to let them be spoon fed to you from other people? That's really what we're going to talk about, this whole idea of brainwashing. There's a lot of brainwashing going on. A lot of people don't understand that. They don't see it. You're not designed to see that. You're in a matrix. Maybe not in the science fiction version, but in a much more real version. Something that's really pressing on everybody. Yeah, there's historical precedents for mind control. It's rooted in, geopolitical tensions like in the Cold War. You know, a lot of that was figured out. And J. Edgar Hoover solidified the notion that our thoughts and wills could be subverted by unseen forces. That's what he said back then. And so, while the scientific basis for that extreme version of it might remain sort of elusive, really, though, the anxieties laid the groundwork for recognizing the potential for it, right? The external influences that seek to shape our perceptions and behaviors on a massive scale. Is any of this true, though? Well, if we fast forward to the 21st century, you see a landscape of potential mind control that's drastically kind of evolved over time. It's all embedded in our technologies and media that we consume daily because we're constantly bombarded by advertisements strategically placed across a multitude of platforms, meticulously designed to tap into our desires, our insecurities, compelling us to purchase goods, services that we don't even need. A lot of these things have political agendas, so they want to really get us into a fearful mode. They want to put our mind into a mode of fear and lack and need. We need this, we need that. We're victims. You know, life is happening to us. You have this to us mentality instead of this through us mentality. Get into creator mode. That's the goal. We want to be into creator mode because in that way we can actually start designing the life that we want, right? Because you have to understand, beyond just consumerism, I mean, the architecture of social media platforms really represents a sophisticated and sort of a highly effective system of mass influence for everything. It's driven by algorithms designed to maximize engagement. I mean, I try to use this every day to put out my messages. I try to, trick the algorithm. But you know what? A lot of these platforms prioritize sensationalism and emotional content, but often at the expense of nuanced understanding and critical thought. Everything isn't just black and white. It's the pursuit of social capital, like the likes, the shares, the followers. This is the incentive, that they want, the carefully curated online personas presented on a lot of these platforms contribute to feelings of inadequacy and pressure to conform to unrealistic ideals, you know? And it's nothing new. I mean, the mainstream media has always pursued viewership and readership, and they oftentimes resorted to sensationalized headlines, emotionally charged narratives, and we all want to stay informed. It's normal and natural, and we should, but we have to be you know focused and in control of that. We have to have limits, and we have to know how to draw the line. You got to catch yourself scrolling on your phone and like just this unconscious mode of just scrolling and scrolling and scrolling in your phone, and time is just eaten up. What are you doing that's really that positive? So, like I say, while the desire to stay informed is natural, the emotional state and subconscious thinking can be negative by the news, by the images we see on our phones and computers. And this relentless barrage of dramatic events, it's always presented without adequate context or a balanced perspective. So, what is it going to do? It's going to cultivate a sense of fear, anxiety, helplessness, outrage. It diverts our attention and energy away from our own goals and aspirations. The very inconsistency of daily news, when it's allowed to shape our subconscious, is going to definitely erode our focus and hinder our ability to pursue our path, right? It's going to get us away from the important things of life. And this cumulative effect of this constant bombardment of external stimulus is the creation of a pervasive matrix. It's a system of influence, and it subtly shapes our thoughts, our desires, our perceptions of reality. The matrix, it doesn't operate through like coercion, but through manipulation of our attention, emotions, our social needs. It fosters a culture of distraction, comparison, external validation. And this really hinders our ability to connect with our inner selves, you know, and that's very important in my view, because if we want to pursue a life, we want to pursue a life aligned with our authentic values. What's important to us? What do we want in life? So, escaping this modern matrix is just not about, retreating in isolation or rejecting technology. Rather, it's really about being conscious and deliberate in our effort to cultivate this self awareness. We have to become critical thinkers, be committed to living in accordance with our own values. And, the first really important step is to cultivate mindfulness and self awareness. Now, there's a lot of practices, hobbies, interactions with a group that supports you, um, keeping a journal, meditation, getting in the flow state. Because by regularly observing our thoughts and feelings without judgment, we begin to identify the external influences that shape our internal landscape. And this kind of creates a space for more conscious and intentional responses to this barrage of information that we receive every day. Go take a walk, go enjoy nature for a while, detach for a while, clear your mind. It's going to help you. Get off social media for a minute. You know what I mean? Make deliberate choices about how you spend your time and energy. Limit your exposure to distractive and manipulating media, movies, you know, set boundaries. Here's a challenge for you. Are you able to set your own boundaries? How about try to prove that to yourself? Try to prove to yourself that you actually do have the discipline to step away from a lot of things, you know? See if you really have what it takes to prioritize activities and relationships that nourish your well-being. Find out what that is. What is your well-being? What does it consist of? And what are you doing? What steps are you taking? Are you exercising daily, taking care of yourself, eating right? Or are you just constantly just immersed in distraction? And it's going to lead to depression. It does. Our brains are not naturally wired for all of this stuff that we're artificially putting into the system. Because by consciously choosing where you direct your attention, you're going to reclaim your mental space and you're going to focus on pursuing your own goals and your own passion. Everybody wants to know, how am I ever going to be rich? How am I ever going to be successful at anything? Well, first of all, you have to focus. Where do you put your energy? That's where your success is going to be. The more energy you put into that, It's like, growing a flower. You have to water it every day. Are you doing that for yourself though? Or are you just mindlessly immersed in the matrix? And escaping the matrix also involves fostering authentic connections with other people who support and inspire you. Like build relationships, but build them based on genuine connections. Mutual respect, can provide a vital, counterweight to all of this isolation and superficial nature of online interactions. Strengthen your resolve to live a life of purpose and meaning. You know what I mean? Because you have to understand your own power. The human mind possesses an innate capacity for evolution and self-discovery. There's like a hidden evolution driven by curiosity, creativity, inspiration, a deep-seated attraction towards the source of your own awareness. By consciously cultivating these inherent qualities and actively challenging the external forces, they're trying to control your thoughts and behaviors, no doubt about that. But you can begin to dismantle the modern matrix and reclaim your individual collective autonomy, man. The time to awaken from this illusion is now, not to really just retreat into simulated reality, but to fully embrace richness and the potential of your own conscious existence. Only when you're ready to understand the subtle and powerful ways in which your mind is being shaped are you really going to know how to truly break free and create a world where individual agency and authenticity, self-expression, all of this is going to flourish. Until you do that, so you have to know your own power. You control the matrix. That's the first rule. That's the first thing you need to understand. You are in control of that matrix. Is the first step, though, is to become self-aware of it. That's the first step. And do what you can to disengage. The principle of unattachment. Become unattached to a lot of this external validation that we seek. You don't need it. You really don't. You just need to focus in on what it is that supports you as a being human. you know get out in the world, interact with the world, interact with people, build relationships. Let's get back to that, because technology is really ramping up. AI is really ramping up, and it's to the point where purpose and meaning will get lost. We've got to find purpose and meaning, however that is. You have to start looking at the value of subjectivity. you know the most important and primary thing in our life is our consciousness. Understanding that our experience is where we're going to derive meaning and value. But as long as we keep on giving power to the external, this idea of the external world, we're going to constantly be controlled and manipulated to someone else's goals and ends, not yours. And that's really the message for today. I just wanted to let you know here for 15 minutes my view on that, and my suggestions for maybe living a better, more positive life. I'm trying myself. We're all a work in progress, and this is my contribution. So I appreciate your time.